For those of you who just, all right, great. For those of you who just joined, I wanted to just say one more time, make sure, it looks like everyone has changed their names to include where they're from and a pronoun if you have preference. So we'd love to see your faces if you can. If you're in a position to take your, have your camera on, that'd be great. But if not, this is going to be an interesting and engaging and exciting conversation. So we know we'll have your ear. Thanks for joining us. Again, my name is Wesner Pierre, and I am proud and humbled to host this Leaders Cafe. We are excited to be joined by Bidjan Nashat, who is the current CEO of Atlas Cores, and we're going to dive into a conversation. So you all know the history of Leaders Cafe, right? This is a space that we come and join just to connect, to be able to hear from one another, to be able to be support to one another, and we've had a fantastic opportunity to bring in guests and guest speakers. We've even last year had the Global Alumni award winner here. We have had CCI present. There's been so much happening on this platform. So if you're on and your friends from the alumni network have not joined, be sure to make them aware this is happening and ongoing. And so today is, without exception, we're looking forward to a great day. So I want to just tell you a little bit about Bidjan before we get into our conversation. He brings a broad international experience to the role of CEO. He comes to Atlas Corp from Save the Children's senior executive team, leading the quality and impact of a 1.2 billion with a B dollar program budget, reaching more than 40 million children in more than 100 countries worldwide. He also served as interim CEO in 2019 and led the organization's biggest global effort to hire, develop, and retain hundreds of talented experts from countries across the globe. Bidjan formerly served as Director of Programs and Advocacy at Save the Children Germany, where he led the 2015 refugee response and was frequently interviewed on German television and the BBC. He also worked as a strategy officer at the World Bank, a partner of the Tech for All Global Network. The Global World Bank in DC, and he was part of the team that started the Tech First Deutschland, which is a partner of the Tech for All Global Network. So Bidjan, he's also taught and given lectures on project management, fundraising, and leadership at leading business schools, the US Department of State, the World Bank, and the United States Institute of Peace. He studied at Yale and Georgetown University, and he holds a Master's of Public Policy from the Heritage School in Berlin. Bidjan grew up in the American sector of West Berlin as the son of an immigrant from Iran and a German mother. He currently lives with his wife and daughter in the Washington, D.C. area, and he has been so gracious to join us today and share some of his insights. So without further ado, I want to introduce you all to Bidjan. Bidjan, how are you today?
I am doing really well. Thank you for the kind introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here. I hope it's a conversation, and I get to listen and to learn about you and the network. I really look forward to engage.
Great, great. So speaking of conversation, we want to get a sense from each of you today. If you can drop into the chat, how you're feeling today, just one word. I gave this great introduction to Bidjan. I know we're excited, so I just want to get a sense from everyone today. How are you feeling? Give me one word that sort of encapsulates your mood for the day, and then we'll kick it off into some Q&A with Bidjan. I see some folks. He says, "Phew." So some folks are ready, feeling good, optimistic. Looks like it's rainy where someone is. Someone's energized, feeling great, fantastic, curious, and happy. Really good spread of emotions here this day. So, Bidjan, I don't know if everyone knows this, but you speak 3 other languages: German, French, and some Persian. So would you tell us, to start us off, a fun fact, something that is not on your CV, or something that you'd like to share with us today?
Of course, and I'm not fluent in those three. I want to make that clear.
Fair.
The one thing I've mentioned this to the team already. You know, you develop your identity over the course of your childhood and your adulthood, and one of the things that is really core to my identity is realizing that my family is spread across the globe, and that my siblings, for example, are married or partnered with partners from 4 different continents, and so it's a little UN, right? And when you look at the pictures that I had put up over my office desk, it really reminds me that I want to be and I am part of the world, and I am proud of that.
Oh, that's great. That's so awesome. So we've learned today that your family is a little UN. That's a great note to start
The
off.
good part, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So you're new to Atlas Core. First off, tell us how it's going. You know, what has been sort of your greatest challenge to date? You know, coming into a new space virtually. You know, we're still very much in the throes of the pandemic, and so we just wanted to get a sense of you, just how it's going so far.
I get paid to do this. That's I think a revelation to me, and it's a huge privilege. And I know Abby and some other colleagues aren't here. It's it's just a real pleasure to meet the team and the people, and I will hopefully get a chance to talk a little bit more about the community and how I've been able to engage and meet and listen to them. So I feel really privileged and grateful to be part of this new community.
That's awesome. And so how you know, I mentioned the pandemic, things are remote. We're in a world where we're still living with lots of uncertainty. And so can you kind of give us a window into this process for you? Like, how did you successfully transition to Atlas Core during this time?
Yeah, I mean, I knew I needed to do something else. I think we may get a chance to talk about what the pandemic meant for anyone personally, but also in leadership positions in particular, and my experience. And that was difficult. It was really difficult. And I made a decision last year that I want to do something else. I knew we would relocate back to the US, where my wife is from, and wanted to go back to. And so I spent quite a bit of time reflecting on what is it that I really want to do next, and talent and giving people opportunities had been the thing I've been most proud of in my career. Even when I had focused on different areas, it was always about the talent that you were able to bring into your team, the talent that you were able to give opportunities. And so I went into a real journey in finding the right people and connecting, spend a lot of time asking people for advice and asking people for help to get connections, and doing all of that virtually, first from London, and then we relocated in the middle of the pandemic to my in-laws. So I spent 7 months living with my in-laws in Pennsylvania. And during that process, the opportunity materialized, and I got the chance to present what I want to do, and was selected into this amazing position and organization.
And so you talked about, you know, sort of what I was gleaning from it was this opportunity to support and lead others, right? So this makes me think about your perspectives sort of on leadership and leadership development. And, you know, I would love to hear some of your insight. You know, we know that you have some interesting perspectives in this space. And so we'd love for you to share a little bit here. And I think also thinking about how you lead with the mentality of sort of team first and supporting others first, even though you are the CEO, right? So if you could just sort of share with us.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think two things that I want to pick up on. The first one is I know Stacy is calling in from London. So I spent 3 years in the UK, and when someone says interesting in the UK, I'm always a bit careful. But that just as a side note, uh, I think, let me take you back to last year. You're sitting virtually in lockdown in London, and your teams are global. The connections aren't great to many countries, and literally team members that you are very close with and that you hired and work with have people dying around them. And that changes your perspective, and it really brings you back to what is the actual job? What is the role as a leader? Is to enable the people that are around you to be who they are, feel safe, feel connected, and be able to function. And there's this saying, bringing yourself to work and all of that. And I think that's important, but what it really means and meant to me is I need to be there for others in order for them to function in the first place. And there are many things that I think many leaders since last year in particular, who have dealt with crises, have experienced that they can't necessarily talk about, because a lot of this stuff happens in the background and it doesn't is not public knowledge, all of the things that happen. Those things remind you that it's all about caring for others in these roles, and that your role is to create an environment where people feel safe and where people feel welcome, and where they also can share what's going on, not only in their professional environment. And once you do that, and research is on the side, right, of there's evidence for this, they can bring out their best. And sometimes it's not their best, but they're members of your team. And walking through critical and crisis events, you come out stronger as a team. That's my experience from last year. We had to restructure. We had to let people go, and I found that out at the beginning of the summer, and when everybody was working 24/7, and mothers with children, with their partners being sick and carrying on because they believed passionately about the work for children. Every single hour spent either caring for children or caring for other children who are abroad. And I developed such a deep respect, and it just affirmed me that the role is actually to enable others to be their best and to help them thrive by, showing kindness, by opening a space for them to share what's going on. So that's a huge takeaway from last year, and probably one of the few good things that people have realized coming out of this pandemic, what it's really about.
Well, that's really powerful. And you're right about the research being on the side of this. I know that there's a great article that Harvard has on the importance of leaders and holding, and how important that is for folks, even through times of uncertainty, where how you're going to come out on the other end is not clear per se, but you're able to hold through that. And it sounds like you're really honing in on that, which is fantastic.
But I think, I'm sorry, I have to add something, because it starts with yourself, because I wasn't doing well in that situation and I needed to take a break. And I spent a week reflecting and trying to be well, and actually writing about another crisis that I went through, where a staff member died a few years back, and really finding closure for my role, my leadership role during that period, helped me come out of that week. I only realized it later, but it helped me coming out of that week, helped me respond to the situation last year, because I had put closure to a different situation that was really difficult. So it starts with taking care of yourself.
Wow. Goosebumps. This really resonates. And I admire you so much more for even being able to say that. When is it okay for a leader, someone of your level, or the executive level, to say, I'm not okay, whether it be to yourself or to colleagues? And you talked about how you got through that. Can you share a little bit of insight there? I mean, I think often what I found, and I'm sure others on the call would feel the same way as that. And when you're in the role of leadership, it's your job to fix the problem, whatever it is, or to find a solution or a way out. So when is it okay for you to check in with yourself in the way that you described? And how do you do, are there any tools or anything that you might want to share with us on that front?
It is a difficult question because I think we're all shaped by the environments, especially the organizational environments that we are in or have experienced. And I remember it took me a lot of courage because there were leaders in the organizations I worked in who don't look at it this way, who, the tough leader who gets everything done and who always shows up and doesn't show any weakness. And you are shaped by those leaders as well, because, and of course you report to them, so they have a say on how you feel and what you do. But I guess developing a self-awareness for, why am I feeling this way? Why do I feel like I can't continue another day of listening to stories of people passing away or having to fire people, or dealing with a crisis? People not feeling well around you has an impact on you, unless you are, I don't know, autistic. So I think it's really it's training. It takes how am I feeling, what do I need, and then sharing that. Because if you look back after 10 years, and that's what I try to do sometimes, I know it's a technique that can be really helpful, is if I look back at this moment in 10 years time or 5 years time, how do I want to be viewed by myself in the future, by my future self? Would I make myself proud of how I've acted in this situation? So there are a few techniques. I think you need to find out what works for you, but I mean, it's connected to your values. If you don't work with your values being in touch with your values and the things that matter to you, you will not come out of the situation as a whole. And that's, I think, all that matters.
Wow, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. So two quick takeaways. I like this Back to the Future thing. I am going to definitely steal that. I think that's great. Thinking about 10 years from now. That's great. And so what do you think is the most important thing for a leader to have, like on the same vein that we've been talking about, to have or to be on the lookout for really during these uncertain times?
I think I would put self-awareness first, because everything starts, you have such a big impact on an organization, and everybody's looking at you, right? Whether you want it or not, people are looking at not necessarily what you say, but what you do. And it starts with being aware of your words and actions. And it starts with being aware of your strengths and the areas where you have to extend more energy, your weaknesses, the areas where you need to work. And if you are aware of them, you can build a team that makes up for those. And really realizing that it's not on you, it's on you to build a team and an organization around what you do that gets things done. And all of that starts with being self-aware of what you do well and being open to receiving feedback on what's not going well and how to improve it.
So being aware, what keeps you up at night?
I don't think it's one thing. It's
so go for it. We have a little bit of time.
I think the first thing I think about is, I think it's really easy. I feel it's really easy to forget that the pandemic is not over. And especially in the countries that we work with, it's had impacts like we haven't seen before, and it is not over and will not be for at least a decade. And I say that to people, and some of them in OECD or Western Northern countries react like, yeah, it's not good. But I really, that keeps me up at night, that we don't forget what's really happening. And I say this having worked at Save the Children and having done all this analysis, and especially our reports from last year, where we reached out to over 20,000 kids and in many countries and heard from them and their situations and how they suffered and are suffering in this environment. So that keeps me up at night, that we don't forget, and we keep that as part of the mission and the work we do. this will be around us for at least a decade. And I think the second thing is how the people around me are doing, and how we can make sure that they are okay, and if something happens to them, to be there for them. I think those two things, and that's not just now, that's always been something that I've learned, especially last year, that is actually crucial, that should keep you up at night.
Yeah,
To an
yeah.
extent.
Yeah. Well, definitely
Sleep is
seeing
important.
yeah. I'm definitely seeing a through line here in how you lead and focus on your team and people, which I think is fantastic. So let's switch gears a little bit on a technical side of things. How is it managing a board of directors? Like on the more technical logistical side of things, how is it as a new person coming in? So how do you find, I think, the balance of positive forward thinking, right? Because you come in as a new person with new ideas. And so obviously there's going to be some positive forward thinking there, but also how do you balance that with maintaining organizational tradition and honoring organizational tradition? So I'd be curious to hear how you have been, how that's been going for you.
A few thoughts. Well, first of all, you should probably invite me back in half a year or 1 year, because
Okay.
I'm in week 5, and I think we're all in a honeymoon phase in terms of, having someone new join, and lots of excitement around it, and I'm aware of that. Um, I've worked with many boards. I mean, one of my jobs at the World Bank was to report independent evaluations on how things went to the executive board. And those were not always nice conversations, because you were in a room with management explaining to the board that things didn't go the way they should have. So you learn out of those engagements. And the Save the Children board was an international board as well that we reported into. I think what's different about the Atlas Core board is that it's a board that is really engaged, and even though people are volunteering, they are working in the committees. They want to be part of the solution. They want to. There's an energy that is extending from the team, I think, and that's something I'm learning about Atlas Core, that extends to the board. And most importantly, my boss, I have a board chair who's my boss, and that relationship is absolutely key, because I think one of the risks is if you try to develop relationships with every single board member, because that can also take all of your time. So I think it's important to look at who's my boss, how do I work with her, and how do we make the community work in terms of the team, the board, and bringing it together. The second thing is, you mentioned about the tradition. I wouldn't look at it as an either or, and Abby and I have lots of conversations, as given that she's been with the organization for a decade and was acting CEO until I joined. I think it's the strength of the organization that can lead us into the future of the traditions and what Atlas Core has achieved. And how do we translate that into the new environment? I think it's not either or, past or future. It's you learn from what has made you great as an organization. And then you translate that into what does it mean for a post-pandemic or a return to work or a future of work conversation. Because what's obvious is that the impact and that the community have such strength and energy and potential that it's merely finding the right venue and the right way of connecting going forward that I think will make a difference. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, but I just want to make sure I don't think of it as a black or white, past or future challenge.
I'm so happy we're recording this. This is great, great insights. So you didn't come in as a regular, it's like a team member at any level. You came in as a CEO. So what is it like transitioning into a new organization as the CEO? It's not often that this happens, right? Usually orgs have CEOs for a while, and definitely this is the first time for us here at Leaders Cafe. So I would love to hear how that transition coming in as a CEO has been.
Believe me, I've thought about this a lot, especially before I started, and it makes you nervous, right? Because it's the most important thing, and I've talked a lot with my coach. I kept my coach from the UK, which is amazing because she knows me quite well by now, and she's been almost a therapist. I mean, good coaches are therapists, right? And the one thing we talked about a lot recently was a bit meditating on the fact that there's no excuse anymore. And I mean, you're in charge. So in other organizations where you can always say, well, you know, there's a boss, or there's a committee, or there are all these colleagues, you need to be careful that you lose that mindset of there's a reason why I'm not doing this. And the notion that the buck stops with you, I mean, except for the board, but that is something that is both a bit scary in the beginning, I think, and also can be liberating. And I think the challenge is finding the right balance between those two feelings, and then just practicing every single day and inviting the team to help you do it. But to me, that's something I'm going to continue to work on, that there are no excuses. So things not going the right way, you can't say, well, but the CEO took this decision, so it's not really on me.
Okay, so your two t-shirts for CEO are going to be scared liberation and there are no excuses. Right on the front of both of your.
I like it.
Okay. That's great. So also, folks, we are going to have some time. I just wanted to flag for you all for Q&A too. So I don't want to hog up all of our time. So I'm going to get in a couple more. Keep your questions. We're going to open up. I see some head nods. Folks are interested to jump in. So Bidjan, throughout your career as a leader, is there one thing that you can share with us that you would say, I want to keep this thing? And one thing that you would just be like, you know what, this has not served me well. I thought it did, and I just need to get rid of that thing.
So you want two?
Yeah, one to keep and one to discard.
What I want to keep is mentorship. You know, for the last 15 years, I only had female bosses. I think that makes a difference in a way. And I always stayed in touch, and I tried to get their advice. Yeah, I think I would definitely keep that. Stay in touch. People are always willing to help, and they like seeing you thrive and develop. So that's been a huge help to me, to get my bosses to continue to be in touch and to support. The thing I want to get rid of is, doubt. I mean, it's good and bad, right? Because if you're not nervous and if you don't doubt at some point, you're also blind. But building more confidence over time that your gut feeling is actually correct, and that most of the time what's keeping you from doing it is your brain. And so I'd like to get rid of a bit more doubt and trust my gut more.
Okay, well, yeah. Okay, so keeping the mentorship. Richard, you hear that? Keep our, extend our coaches and so yeah, I mean, we are all so fortunate as alumni here of the Leadership Academy to have had great Shoshana's laughing, great mentorship and great coaches. And so definitely keep that and then throw away that doubt. Just two quick ones. One is our work in the nonprofit sector is really mostly proximity based, I think, right? And so the gift of proximity that we've had to be able to be in proximity to people, to connect, to go on lunches and so on and so forth when you're networking has in many ways been taken away from us. And now we have to schedule things and come on a Zoom and we can't shake hands and connect in the ways that we used to. So I'm just curious, how do you network virtually? Like, what does that look like for you? Because you talked about mentorship and keeping in touch. And so something that probably wasn't as formal now may have to be a little bit more formal and planned or scheduled. And so I'm just curious, how does virtual networking work for you?
I don't think it's easy. I mean, you can't make up for human connection. And I just came from a call with a partner, and it reminded me of something, right? You need to make it easier. So connect. That's number one. But then find a way to overcome that virtual screen. And for example, if people want to say what is in their background, if people want to share a little bit of a story, and you've done that in the beginning, right? Try to break the ice as much as you can. And yeah, and connecting to mentorship. You remind me, last night, I spent an hour on a phone with a former colleague who is looking to change jobs and extend her career, and enjoy that stuff. So we spent an hour discussing what she's achieved and how to, narrate her story about who she wants to be in the future. And I think that keep up the connection with people, because that's what I miss. I think my last point is I've really gotten a lot of energy out the listening tour. I send out this Calendly invite to everyone in the community for 15 minutes one-on-one, and I do that 3 times a week. And it just connects me to people all across the globe, and to this alumni community, which is amazing. And you come across, yesterday I had someone from Russia tell me, until the last second, I did not think you would actually be here, because no one in Russia would talk to me at your level. And so just it makes you, some things that are really important to you and you think are absolutely crucial are not in many cultures, and creating those connections can really make a difference, even in 15 minutes. And that's something that surprised me, that I would recommend for everyone to do.
So one, I need this link for the Calendly to get on that 15 minutes. 2, how do you find the time? Right? Like, you're a busy guy. How do you find the time to do 3 times a week? Wow. How do you find the time?
I was talking to one of my really good friends who's a leadership professor last week, and he reminded me of Warren Buffett's calendar. And Warren Buffett's calendar has 3 days in which there's nothing on his calendar, and he's been quite successful. So, and he reminds people that the role of the CEO is to think and to connect and to reflect on the future. So the more you get dragged into the present, the less time you spend on thinking about what the future for the organization needs to be. And I think there are people who pride themselves with being busy. And to me, that's an old way of thinking about leadership. I mean, you can do that as a project manager, and you should, but your role is different. So this is not making time, this is the time.
Whew. Got another t-shirt there, Bidjan. This is not making time. This is the time. Love it. The front is going to say, this is not making time. And the back is going to be, this is the time. Last question. And then we'll open it up. So this is pretty straightforward. How do you ask donors for money? How do you ask, in the philanthropic class, how do you engage individuals, whether they be high net worth individuals, whether they be foundations? How do you go about doing it?
Well, you should ask Abby, because she's been really successful at doing that, and I will have to do it for Atlas Corps going forward. So I don't want to talk about things I've done for Atlas Corps. Maybe I'll share one anecdote. There was a woman who called up Save the Children in Germany a few years back in 2014, and she wanted to give 10,000. And the CEO heard about it, one of my female CEO bosses, and she called her back and had a conversation and said, great, right? And what happened afterwards is that the woman wanted to meet with us, and I was the programs director, so we put together what we could do for her. And she came in and she said, I want to donate my entire inheritance, 1 million euro, to you as an organization. And so we developed a program that we otherwise would not have been able to do in besieged areas in Syria at the time, child participation in northern Somalia, and started our refugee work in Germany. So we presented 3 projects to her. Long story short, people want to be part of something important. They give money because it's a means to an end, and the end is not only being thanked and celebrated. The end is feeling valued and contributing to something important. So if you can present the why and what, I think you will be successful if your why and what are good.
Mhm. Okay, got it. Wow. So this has been food for the mind, for my soul, my spirit, all the things. This has been really great conversation. And I don't want to monopolize the time. We have a few minutes for some questions. So folks, you can raise your hand and I can tag you in, or you can just come off of mute and ask question for Bidjan. And if you don't move, I am happy to keep going here. Oh, okay, Stacy from
Stacey,
London,
please help me.
and then Gary after
Stacey,
Stacy.
Stacey, I have to ask you for a favor. You have to explain why the interesting joke is funny.
Which, sorry?
The interesting joke.
When you were talking about London?
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's I'm not sure if it is funny. I'd say it's been quite ironic here, would be my take on it. It's
Fair enough.
yeah, it's been challenging as you kind of went through, I'm sure. But yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure whether this is a question as such, but it's more observations. But first of all, that was incredibly thought-provoking. And I think what really came out was your honesty and actually your vulnerability, you know, and it's rare to hear somebody at your level talk in such an open and kind of connecting way. So, you know, really appreciate that. One of the things I'm really passionate about is mentoring kind of the next generation coming through. And one of the things that we've seen, I work for an arts organization, art gallery in London. We had a lot of redundancies. We lost 28% of our staff. But also what's happened is that the people sort of almost left behind, or the kind of people still working with us, I think it's been really hard. I think people have become demotivated and disconnected. And I think part of that is that there hasn't been the sort of mentoring programs that have been so available that you would normally find within organizations. So I guess one of the things that I've set up is peer-to-peer mentoring within certainly the development team. I work in the development team because certainly that next generation coming through, I think they see their prospects are really dwindling, and it's almost like they sort of should feel grateful that they have their job, let alone thinking about where they might go next, where that kind of path may lead. So I suppose it's sort of observation in one way, but also saying to you, how can we connect with this sort of with this group? How can we really help them to come through this challenging, difficult time, but realizing that whilst they're still working from home, that opportunities are still there, that they can connect, that we can help them. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I'm not sure I have all the answers. The first thing I think about when I hear London is I would meet in a park. I would really try to bring people together and walk and celebrate outside. And that's possible right now, again, in London, much more so than maybe, and there are few cities that have more beautiful parks. But apart from that, I think there's nothing that keeps you from doing it, I would say, right? I mean, mentoring starts with you doing it, and then people will emulate and copy what you do. And you can't lead by speeches, you have to lead by example. So start small and keep doing it. It's almost like exercising. If you do it once a month, then it won't make a difference, but you probably have to do it a few times a week in order to get traction. And those are the two things that come to mind, but I'm sure there's many more that can be done.
Thanks, Stacy. You can't lead by speeches on the back. You lead by action. These shirts, Bidjan, these shirts. Gary, you got it,
Donations
sir.
to Atlas Corps if you sell them.
Yes, that's right.
And I have to say, I probably won't be very good on those game shows because I hit the buzzer, but Stacy got there first, so I went to unmute. So, John, I want to thank you for your presentation. I also apologize, I came a little late to it. So my question you may have covered in the early part of what you were of your presentation, but I just was curious when you know leading Atlas Corps now. I'm just wondering, you know, a lot of an organization's how it functions. It's the culture comes from the top, from CEO, and it permeates down. And I'm just wondering if you hadn't already discussed this, if you could talk a little bit about when you came into Atlas Corps and you're fresh and everything's new and shiny and all that. If there are certain things that you would like, I want to make sure everyone here knows this about me, and what let's say are 3 things that you want everyone to know about what is going to what expectations are, or how you want people to know how what culture you want to instill in the organization, what you might even want to have let go, things that may be, you know, that I just wonder if you had done, let's say, any sort of like one-on-ones with at all levels of the organization, staff members, and say, you know, I've learned this, I'm hearing this, you know, this is what I'm seeing as I want people to understand. This is how I see our organization moving forward.
The difficult ones for the end, right? No, it's a great question. I think first of all, and there is already a culture, especially in founder-led and organizations. It's really important to listen and to understand how it ticks, and it's led by a founder, right? And it has a very special culture around it, and really understanding what makes it up and what makes it so successful. That's number one. So the first thing I wanted everyone to know, and still do, is that I'm listening. And I said my first 90 days are actually Chief Listening Officer. My title is Chief Listening Officer, and that's where the Calendly links and the one-on-ones with the community and with the staff are coming from. And I haven't finished them. I still do them. I want to do them until the end of the year. I think it's the luxury of this team having outperformed out of a pandemic and us being in a really good place for 22. And I'm looking at Abby here and the team. That's the luxury of me being able to do this. The second thing is I want people to know that I do. And so, for example, it's not about speeches. Again, it's about me picking up fellows from the airport or greeting them at the hotel and sending the signal that it is our job to be there for the clients we serve. So a service culture, that it's not me in my basement, you know, telling other people what to do, but me being present. And so I try to do that to the extent that, you know, family and other things make that possible, and also the pandemic. And the third thing is I want people to know how much I believe in the mission and the potential of the organization, but that doesn't necessarily mean continuing everything that we have done so far the same way. It's about the potential of what could be that I really want everyone to start getting excited about. And the fact that we will develop that together. It's not me coming down from the mountain with 10, you know, commandments. It's a community, because it's a small team. It's 13, 14 people. The only way to do this is by bringing the community of thousands together around it and engage them. And I've seen so many strategy processes go wrong, including mistakes that I've made myself in thinking brain matters more than heart and stories. And so I want to get that right. And I want everyone to know that it will be an inclusive process.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very helpful. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're on mute.
Sorry, I have not made that mistake in a long time. Apologies. We have time for one more question. By the way, Bidjan, if you do come down from the mountain, you will have on your 2 tablets a lot of fantastic quotes. Chief Listening on CLO. I love that.
Oh, speaking of tablets, by the way, it was Teach First Germany. It was not a tech company. It was the Teach for America equivalent in Germany. So we were trying to get youth who are underprivileged to serve them in schools. In my bio, sorry.
Ah, okay. Thanks for that. So we have time for one more question. If not, we definitely would like to share some information as we close, but I just want to give some space if there's one more question out there. I'm taking it. All right. So Bidjan, how was this today for you for connecting with us today?
I really appreciated it. I appreciate the feedback on honesty. And you might think this is funny, but even talking about it reminds you of those situations, and that's emotional. So I can't do 12 of these a day, but I really appreciate sharing the experience with you and being part of this network, because that's the only way. If pay it forward, if you're more honest and more vulnerable, you will get it back. That's my experience. And so it's not always easy, but I think it really pays off.
Great. Great. Bidjan, thank you so much. This has been fantastic, truly illuminating, and thank you for taking so much time. And to Stacy's point, just being such a vulnerable, thought-provoking leader. I know I've taken a lot away from this, and I'm going to be looking forward to the link for the recording to watch it again. And we will be producing your hashtag Bidjan shirts soon enough. So be on the lookout. We're going to coordinate with Abby for that. But this has really been a fantastic afternoon. And thank you so much for taking time. Is there anything you'd like to leave with us before we close?
I'd like to invite you to be part of the Atlas Core community and be around. I think having potential future leaders be supported by you guys is really, really meaningful. And I look forward to engaging in the future. So thank you for the invitation. And I give up the copyright if you donate for those t-shirts.
Okay, deal. Okay, deal. Amex is donating for the t-shirts. We're gonna work that out. Well, again, thank you so much, Bidjan. This has been fantastic. So as we close today, we just want to share some information with you all, and also to make sure that you stay connected with the alumni network. So Katie is going to share some information, and I just want to flag for each of you as well that this is the last the last Leaders Cafe of the year. So we've closed it out in a really, really fantastic way with a great conversation. And so we will definitely look forward to see you all in the new year. But we usually end in October because November starts sort of the holiday season and into December. So we give some folks a couple of months off, which we did last year. So we're going to repeat that. So be on the lookout, stay connected to us through LinkedIn, and make sure to continue to connect to the Leader Story app as well, website as well, where there are new features from alumni that you can find on there. The last thing is we want to do a survey. So if folks are amenable to completing the survey really quickly, that would be great. Abby just dropped something in. If you have speaker nominations for 2022, email Academy Fellows at Atlas Core for that. All right, so Katie, if you could share the survey. So either you will get that now, or we can also send that to you in email, just a quick survey for folks to be able to provide some feedback, which will guide us as we move into next year for Leaders Cafe. So As we close, since this is our last one of the year and we have a couple minutes, I wanted to make some space for some closing remarks from Richard, Rebecca, Abby, if there's anything you all would like to say as we close out.
So I'm going to be very brief. I just want to say thank you to Bidjan for presenting today, a brand new CEO of Atlas Cora, a longtime partner of American Express. We've been involved with it for a very long time. I remember meeting the founder, Scott, way back at the Independent Sector Conference. And Scott was actually one of the first members of our Independent Sector NGen Award program. So he was an alum as well. And so I'm just delighted that we have such an inspirational leader now. Not that Scott wasn't, because Scott was quite inspirational, but a new leader at Atlas Cora, because Scott went on to a really fabulous job at the Peace Corps, if folks didn't know. And so just want to say thank you, really appreciate it, and that we look forward to working with you. I'll pass it to either Abby or Rebecca, but thanks everyone for joining us today.
Great, thanks, Richard.
Well, thank you for that. Yes, thank Richard and Rebecca and American Express for the ongoing support, both for Atlas Cora and this. And a special shout out to our Leaders Cafe crew. There's a lot of alumni that helped bring this together. And Westner, I think you're emceeing and bringing this all together. I know, Jacqueline, you did a lot of the back end. So kudos to you all. And there's a lot of others who are involved. So really appreciate that. And everyone just for participating and joining. This was a really great way to end our Leaders Cafe season 2021.
Totally. Thank you, Abby. Rebecca, you got this.
Oh, I was just typing it in because it's really just an echoing of thanks to you, Westner, and Jacqueline, and Abby, and Katie, and team for leading us. This has been such a great series, and what an amazing way to end it. My goodness, that was such a great conversation. So appreciated hearing from him. Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to next year and more to come. So thank you all.
Awesome. And I also want to give a quick shout out to Shoshana, who's in the building as well. Thank you. And thanks to everyone. Again, Leaders Cafe team, Kelsey and Jacqueline, who's on, and Katie. Everyone, just thanks for what has been a challenging but amazing year. And this has been my safe place. So I'm going to miss it for the next 2 months, but looking forward to what's coming next year. There will be a portal, a Leaders Cafe portal with the past recordings, and that is coming soon. Shoshana dropped that in the chat as well. So be on the lookout, stay plugged into LinkedIn, and if that's all, we will see you all in the new year. Happy holidays that are coming, and hope you all stay well and healthy. All right, take care, everyone.